All right, if council will come to order, we'll go ahead and start a committee of the whole meeting. Today is Monday, March 17th, the time being 7 p.m. Meeting's called to order. Will you please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will Clerky please call the roll?
Alderman Arnett.
Here.
Alderwoman Erickson.
Here.
Alderman Fritsch.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Kreinbrink.
Here.
Alderman Lilbrandt.
Here.
Alderman Robinson.
Here.
and Alderman White-Cotton.
Here. All right, all are present. We have a quorum. I'll skip the mayor's report to the next meeting. Clerk's report, Denise E.
No report this evening.
City Administrator report, Jeff Penman.
All right, good evening. I did just pass out a quick report for everybody, kind of a follow-up on a number of these projects and where we're at. Kurt isn't here, so I'm just going to kind of run through a couple of these. But as far as the budget process, last Wednesday, I did send out a tentative draft budget to the entire council. We are looking to try to have a meeting on March 29th for a Saturday committee of the whole budget meeting at 8 a.m. At that point, we'll have to, we will be posting that soon for public viewing beginning the 21st of March. So final payout for deconstruction, we'll see that next time. This is the second payout from that project where we did East Center Street and Dayton Street. We are still withholding a 5% retainage. That'll be paid after the final landscaping restoration's done. Main Street restoration or reconstruction project, we did have bids come back on March 7th. They came in about $800,000 with that. The downtown street lighting project, that's one of the things we do need to make some decisions on. We'd gone out to bid for that, but the way the engineering was done was to have the project all done at once versus initially we had talked about doing it in pieces. So we have some decisions to make there with dollars. It's certainly something we'd like to do, but we've got to prioritize this year and figure out how we're going to get those things done. So the 724 North Main Street is out to bid for demolition, bid opening on March 20th. Let's see. Those are the big things. We spoke a little bit about cloud permit. We're hoping to have that up and running here for our building department in the next couple of weeks. Later this year, we will do the upgrade for G-Works, which is the upgrade for Simple Cities, which is our finance software. We were notified at the end of last year that they will not be supporting our version any longer, so we're doing an upgrade. They say at no additional cost. They're charging us more for the old version, so it is what it is. But we're hoping we're going to get that done in August to begin with. So just a couple other notes there, and that's really what I had for this evening. If you've got any questions, let me know.
Okay, questions from council for Jeff?
Just one.
Yes, sir.
I know you mentioned the Latham Street KKCOM request, and I see that there's an estimate to repair the ditches, about $250,000.
That's what we're talking about for the budget purposes, yeah, about $250,000 if we were gonna have a contractor come in and do it. If we're gonna try and do it with our own staff, we've got to figure out what we're not going to do to be able to try to do that.
Any idea what that kind of a estimate or guesstimate of budget?
We're talking, well, that's the hard part, I guess. I'd like Nick to be able to answer that. We've talked a bit, and he thinks he can do some of it. It would have to be in stages, but it would be more material-driven based on what we think we can do on an annual basis.
Are we talking about putting pipe in the ground?
That's what we would look to, yes.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, other questions for Jeff? All right, we'll move on to our department reports. EMA, Tony Ambrose.
So in your packets today, we'll talk about a little bit later, have an update to the agreement with the city and the fire department. A couple of the key items is the fire department and their board are aligned to this update, have talked with Chief Haggerty on that. It's adding the emergency management volunteers to be part of that so we can help support any fire department work when needed as a volunteer basis. It makes clear that we're volunteer, so it's not a guarantee, and we can help or support them whenever needed. There's no financial obligation, so the ability for us to support them isn't something that would have any cost around that. and then it would auto-renew yearly. So it's really refreshing the agreement that we have with the fire department today and allowing the EMA team to also support on a volunteer basis.
Okay, questions for Tony? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to our police report. Chief Senni?
Start off with the events that we had in the past 2 weeks. We had the Chiefs meeting last week, and then we also had the Girl Scouts come and tour the police department this past week. Thank you to them for all the Girl Scout cookies that they gave to us. The St. Patrick's Day campaign ends tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. We conducted an interview for a crossing guard spot that was actually done today, so hopefully we'll be filling that spot in the next week or so. An offer was made to our lateral officer, hoping to hear back from him in the next 2 days. The officers are completing their background investigations on some applicants. Met with the Police and Fire Commission. They have finalized their new rules and regulation. We also went over the list in which 4 of the applicants that were on that list have been removed for various reasons. All the officers have qualified with their duty weapons for the year, and then all officers have now been issued our tasers, so our new tasers are out on the street. The department is going to be having an Easter Day egg hunt on April the 5th. We actually just recently published that. It's going to be broken into 3 different age groups. The first age group is from 10 to 10:30, under the age of 3. The second age group is from 10:30 to 11, ages 3 to 7. And then the last age group is from 11 to 11:30, and that is 7 and older. That's going to be rain or shine. If it's nice out, we have the nice area to the east of the police department, that nice grass area. We'll use that. If not, we'll be using the police department inside. We've created something a little different on that too. We are creating a sign-up sheet for that. It's on our Facebook page and also on our webpage to sign up, so we have an idea of how many children are going to be attending the event. The first Explorer meeting happened this past Saturday. They are very excited to be part of the program and very excited to be part of the police department. Their next meeting is going to be actually this upcoming Wednesday on the 19th. Our next one's going to be Pop with a Cop. That's going to be on the 25th of March from noon to 12:30 at Johnny K's. I provided you guys with the monthly report. Just want to note that there was, when you look at the training the officer attended, there was a lot of training in the month of February. We actually used the TI simulator was used. We're able to do scenarios on the screen there. We're actually only using one screen right now. We're going to be working on setting up all 3 screens. The officers also had stop stick training, going over our policy and when to use our stop sticks and when not to use our stop sticks. You also notice that Officer Bright attended a 2-week DARE program, so he is now DARE certified. He's working with the school to teach the DARE program, and then I think it's going to be towards the end of the school year. And then we had a community engagements. We had a DARE bowling event and then a coffee before business. 2 significant incidents during the month. We had a possession of a controlled substance, and then also leaving the scene of a traffic crash. We actually were able to identify that person through the use of our Facebook page with citizens called in on that, so appreciate for that. You see our case assignments for the month that we had there, and then we have the SRO report for his work in the school. We also processed 10 FOIAs for the month. Then there were 12 compliance citations that were issued during the month of February. And then if you look at our monthly stats, overall the month was well, nothing that I'm too concerned about. There are some dips in a couple numbers in there, but nothing I'm concerned about considering that we had 2 officers that were in training for half the month. So I took that into consideration. Our biggest call for the month, or our biggest increase that I noticed, was our lockouts. We had 11 lockouts, so people warming their cars up in the morning, locking their keys in the car. So just a little reminder on that. And then other than that, again, our proactivity was good for the month. And then you have the total calls for service this year, or incidents, we're up to 3,613. And then last month we had 1,656 calls for incident, where the vast majority of them, again, are being proactive from our officers. Just again, I always like to remind the community about our website and the community dashboard report. when I talk about the incidents, that's exactly where I'm pulling that information from. So there is a public website for that. It's on our page for people to be able to look at. It'll show the areas where calls are happening in town. And the last thing I always like to say, I like to thank the officers for the job that they're doing day in and day out.
Okay, questions for Chief Senni? Okay, thank you, Chief. Good job. All right, engineering report. Excuse me. Mr. Deppman's not here tonight because we're going to have a public hearing, so we have another representative from EEI. But Jeff gave a lot of that information under his report. So we'll move on to our council reports. Alderman Adam Arnett.
Just wanted to let everybody know the traffic light at Drew and 34 is up and running now. We got the controller back and got it installed. In the next couple of weeks, the manufacturer is going to be sending a team out to go back through all the lights because we've been having issues with them. We now have 2 battery backups that are down, so they're going to go through every camera and light battery backup system and see what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Alderwoman Erickson.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Alderman Fritsch.
I just want to say the area behind Johnson's Floor where the street department went in and cleaned it up and made a parking lot is really nice. I don't know. I've been asking to have that happen, and was always told the railroad owned it and we couldn't do nothing. I don't know what changed, but I'm glad it did.
We were waiting for the railroad to clean it up and finally got tired of waiting.
So we just went ahead.
We
Okay.
finally carved a few days out and they went after it, so.
I agree, though. Those look very nice.
Yes. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Johnson.
Not so much of a report from my area, but I wanted to mention there's been a person running whose signs have been getting stolen. So election season, all the signs and all the money that gets spent, and Dr. Wellington's signs have been going missing. So I want to remind people, if you're stealing signs on private property, it is a misdemeanor, and the cops will be called. And when I looked it up for Illinois law, it also states that there should be only 1 sign per property per candidate. So just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Kreinbrink.
Okay, so just to kind of remind everybody, Jeff had spoken a little bit before about the budget. So the tentative budget's been emailed out to everybody. So if you have any questions, give a shout out to me or to Jeff. There's still a lot of work to be done with that budget. There's a lot of refinement that needs to take place within that. The committee had some suggestions, but we didn't want to go through there and really start hacking and everything like that until everybody had a fair share to look at it. So right now we're looking at 8 a.m. on March 29th, that's Saturday, to come in here and hopefully go through that and get a budget put through. So appreciate everybody's time.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Alderman Littlebrandt.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Alderman Robinson.
Just a couple of things. One, echo what Bill said about that property along Railroad and everything. It does look real nice. And most of that's what we lease anyway from the railroad, correct?
Could you say that again?
The property that on Railroad that was cleared up, isn't most of it what we lease?
Part of it is what we lease, but we own the piece that is immediately next to the parking lot that was existing, that was Linder's Lumber Yard. So, but we do lease a portion of that. The problem is that the railroad had dumped some of the ballast, the big rocks and stuff on the property that the city owned, and we were trying to get them to clean that up. But it was either do it now or it wasn't going to get done this year, so they just tried to work it in.
Also on there, just real briefly, the employee time clocks. Nothing I've brought up in a meeting yet. I know I've talked privately with a few people about it, but my understanding is there's a couple departments in the city that don't have time clocks, and for there to be an official timekeeping or no question about a start-finish time, I think every department should have some sort of a official record keeping. I mean, a lot of people do it nowadays electronically, rather than, police department just can be calling in on the radio, something like that.
So you know which departments you're referring to?
Well, I believe the water and sewer, but I guess my concern is that everybody had time clocks before. so I'm not sure where they went to,
So
or why
I-
they're not being used now.
Yes, I do know that sewer and water have turned in timesheets ever since I became mayor. And that is a legal form of record keeping for the IRS for documentation. The difference with them is they quite often have chargeable time to other departments that they can't put on a time card, which is why I believe why they use the timesheets. So as far as I know, from day one, that's what those two departments use because they share some expenses with whatever department they're doing work for.
And I understand, but I just mean a record as far as what time somebody is starting work and finishing work every day. I understand if they're gonna do a paper copy where they're assigning time to other things. A lot of people do that at different work because it gets charged out differently as far as what department they're doing that to. But the overall start and finish should be on one time card. It doesn't matter what department it's getting charged for. That would be, and I understand IRS has a bunch of goofy rules sometimes about certain things, but as far as a standard, I mean, somebody just writing down that they start work every day at 7 and finish every day at 3:30. I don't know, I'd like to see a time clock where they're starting at 7 or 6:59 or 7:03. Doesn't matter, but just a record. I think it keeps everybody honest. And I think if there's ever a question as far as whether or not somebody was or wasn't working, or they were working over, or they hadn't worked at all, there'd be a record of that.
Okay?
For what it's worth, as part of the G-Works program, as we're looking to bring that up to speed in August, that does have a timekeeping component to it that we'd like to try to implement at that point in time. So that was kind of just for whatever that's worth.
And I think something like that would be fine, like I said, logging onto a computer or whatever else. I mean, you know, if somebody's really tech savvy, I'm sure they could log in from their house or log in from their phone or whatever else anyway. I'm not saying
We're
that
not
there's
looking to do
anything-
that.
No, I know.
We don't want to
understand,
allow
but-
that,
But
for
what I'm
sure.
saying is that, you know, depending on how they have access, all I'm asking is just that we have a standard for everybody and that everybody's held to the same standard.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion.
I would point out too that I'm not aware of any fraud, waste, or abuse, but if any of the council is, you have a responsibility as elected officials to report that immediately. That's part of our audit, that's part of your annual response to them as well. So if you're aware of something, you should report it.
Well, this would help probably everybody. Secondly, I brought this up a while back, the agenda format and the order. I'd still like to suggest, or have other comments from the council as far as moving the individual council reports towards the end of our agenda. Possibly put them even right in front of where the announcements would be. But I think there might be a little bit more council input if our reports were towards the end of the meeting after new business, old business, things like that, rather than at the very beginning.
I believe that follows the municipal code. It has a different structure between committee of the whole and a regular meeting, but we can review that to make sure it complies. I believe it matches it, but we can review it.
Right, it's in the municipal code, so we'd have to change the municipal code, right, to be able to do that?
Yes, we'd have to do an ordinance change.
Was that changed within the last couple of years? Because
I don't think so.
No, I think that,
the council reports were towards the end.
I think what happened was the agenda format wasn't in line with the code, and now we're following the code,
So we had changed the agenda rather than,
changing the code.
so we can do either, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no. I mean,
You can change the agenda,
we
you can change
can't-
the code.
Right.
however it was being done, I do not believe was in line with the code. So if we want to change it,
Just have changed the code.
yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Or- And like I said, just if people would like to take a look or throw your 2 cents in, just a thought.
I guess it sounds like a good idea, really.
Third thing I had was just a couple of comments about finance meeting questions. As I've said in the past, I usually don't go to the finance meetings. Sometimes might come to the tail end, but I haven't gone for the last few years. But I noticed that minutes from actually a committee of the whole meeting a few weeks ago, the finance chair was asking everybody if they have questions about bills and things like that, if they could possibly submit them earlier. So stuff could get looked at, which I think is a smart idea to be able to do. And I'd just like to bring up again that possibly they need to look at when we do the finance meeting, because maybe a half hour before the committee of the whole meeting isn't enough time to review the minutes for finance or for the council, or even for the citizens for that matter. Not having department heads available. And again, I know some people are gonna say, well, we get it, emailed to us on Wednesday, so there's plenty of time to view it and ask questions then. Yeah, there might be, but, and I'm not saying everything was always better in the past. I'm okay with some change, but in the past, there used to be a week, sometimes 2 weeks in between the finance meeting and then voting on these amounts and bills and things like that. And I think we would be better informed as a council and as a community if there was a little bit more time in between the finance meeting and this one. So, because then we'd have information and people wouldn't make comments like we're over budget on a certain line item by thousands of dollars when the fact of the matter is we're not, things like that, so.
Okay, anything else, Rich?
Nope, that should be it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman White Cotton?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, old business, 11A, we have a discussion of the termination agreement between Nelnet/GR&E Renewable Energy and the City of Sandwich. So that is up for discussion. It is up for voting at the next meeting, at a regular meeting. There was a settlement agreement as they were not able to perform their responsibilities under the existing and current contract, and this is their response to be released from that. If you have questions, I'd ask the attorney to talk to you about it, and she can maybe update you about the agreement and the discussions that we've had that's led up to tonight's meeting.
Yeah, I just received an email from her actually today, and so I just wanted to confirm if she had any, what her differences were. It was just the name are the only changes. Okay, so I just saw that email come in around 4. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. This is my fees and Kurt's fees, or not specifically Kurt, but engineer, and the increase to the wastewater treatment plant because we did this. The one benefit, I guess, is that if we were to do some sort of solar, maybe what's been done could be used. But that they have agreed to make that payment. They cut payments on Fridays, and so if this is approved, they will cut us a check on Friday.
So I think it's unfortunate. Our intentions were to reduce electrical consumption and our costs out there, but since they weren't able to, they were sold from Green to the current company, Nelnet, and since they can't perform, we don't want to be in business with someone that can't perform their duties. So this will release each party and let us collect some damages, and then we will focus on some new opportunities to put that solar field in. Okay, there's no
Question.
Yes.
Yes.
Is the reimbursement the full amount of your guys' time?
It is a little bit over. I kind of rounded. There was question about time that office or staff had spent on it.
Yeah, it doesn't include my time.
It doesn't include that. It doesn't
Nothing
include
includes my time.
any of the public works.
Attorney and engineering fees?
Yes, that is, yes.
Thank you.
Jeff, you'll have to do billable hours.
We need to start.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, then we'll move on to item B. Okay, item B was the introduction of a cooperative agreement, an IGA, between the Sandwich Community Fire District and the City of Sandwich, specifically in regards to EMA services. So you've heard that addressed under our EMA report by Tony Eberly. Is there any questions for Tony? It will be moved to the next meeting for consideration.
I guess I'd like to know how Tony feels about it. I mean, in the end.
No, I think, I think it's good. Again, I made sure that it was volunteers, so it's not implied. So that gives us the ability to work with Chief Haggerty along with the work that we do with Chief Sunny's team and really provide more value to the community. Plus, it helps me recruit more volunteers who's interested in that type of activity, give back, et cetera. So I think it's good for everyone.
Thank you, Tony. It's very good comments. Appreciate it. Okay, if there's nothing else on item B, we'll move on to item C, which is our discussion on the city administrator ordinance. You were given that to look over and provide comments to Jeff about the ordinance. Any additional comments?
To be honest with you, Jeff asked at the last meeting if we could come in, sit down, and talk to him about it. And I have not had a chance to sit down and talk to Jeff about it, so.
Okay.
I think the bulk of the comments that I did receive was, how does the liaison position work with the administrator and some things like that? And that's something that we do need to kind of talk about. I think the liaisons are there to kind of support the department heads, but neither one of us should be surprised by things that come up, right? And so that was one of the areas. Did anybody want to elaborate on it, that there was concerns? I will say the biggest concern I had when I looked at it is that it's not what I do currently. Much of what I do now is engineering or working with the other departments. So the items that are then in the code that I'm supposed to do are things that I don't get a chance to do sometimes. So that was the concern I had as I was reading it, just because of the way things are set up currently.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, I didn't have a chance to get a hold of you, Jeff, on it, but we had discussed it a little bit maybe a week ago. My bigger concern was just to make sure I understood that the concept was to keep you informed if we were having those certain discussions. Depends on the depth of the discussion, obviously.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to make sure, at least to point out from my perspective, that I feel like as an alderperson, whether it's me or the next person sitting here, they should be able to still contact one of the department heads and have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
That was the only concern that I had brought up.
No, and I think that that's the transition, right? If we're, before, I think always, and Rich, you've got the history, the aldermen have been the only real support for the different departments. So sticking me in a role or this position in a role where we're also supporting that, I think it's good because there's additional support for the department heads, but we want to make sure that we have clear direction as to where we're going, not just for the person in this position, but also for the department heads and the council. So I think that's the big thing, is to make sure that everybody's got the proper direction, and then it's just about being able to provide that support for department heads and the city's employees so that we're doing the things that need to be done.
Well, as, someone who has complained before about communication, we need to make sure we're all communicating. I'm in favor of that. I don't have any issue with it. My major concern, as I brought up to you before, was just to make sure that there isn't some barrier between us and a department head. We should be able to contact them if we need to.
Certainly. I think there's, the hard part is that all this is kind of new for us. We took some ordinances that were from other communities and how it works for them and trying to put something together, but how do we want it to work? That's really the question that needs to be answered, and what works for the city of Sandwich.
Okay, other comments for Jeff or discussions?
I just have a quick question, or quick thing is, I went through all those things I think Cassandra sent to you about the different towns. I went through each one of those with a fine-tooth comb. And most of them said that whatever the mayor gets, the council gets. That's not how things are working right now, though. And also that the administrator doesn't answer only to the mayor. He answers to all of us. And so I want that to be loud and clear in that too. It's not gonna be just one person he's gonna talk to. He needs to come and tell us everything too that's going on. And I feel like we're being left out in left field. So I want that to be put in there too. Let's see, I think that was the gist of putting all those together that I went through, so. I know that they did say that on at least half of those said a master's degree, and I know that he is working on that now.
I am.
And I know that most of those said master's degree you have to have, so, just a tidbit of information for everybody.
Honestly, when it comes down to it, I come in and talk to you. Everything I have issues with on document or similar to Bill is just communication.
Yep.
It seems the liaison is completely cut out of any role at all by the document. And because it states department heads will go to the administrator. Well, what's the use of having a liaison at that point? Liaison's supposed to bring the issues to council that the department needs. So I'll try to get in, have a conversation, see if we can figure something out.
Well, and I think the council needs to think about that, right? What is the role? How do we want the liaison to work versus, the day-to-day stuff? You guys probably don't want a department head calling you at work, asking you questions. So the day-to-day stuff, they should be able to come to me. But when we're talking big picture, or we're talking about, other types of things, yeah, they should be informing you of the things that are going on so that you can report on, leaf collection starts here and brush pickup begins here and the things that they're working on. And I think that that's appropriate. But I think from the perspective of the day-to-day operation of the city, I think we need to make sure that they're coming to me for those things to be able, or whoever's in this role, to be able to say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's what needs to happen, because sometimes they need answers immediately. And, you guys are all busy and do your things too, and there's the likelihood of being able to get everybody immediately is difficult. So I think that puts a lot of pressure on a department head to have to then double check with whomever when you can't get a hold of them. So I think that, there's a lot of discussion that could happen on this. And I think the most important thing is that you guys figure out what you want. If you want somebody with a master's degree, then fine. Then go get somebody with a master's degree. I mean, we're trying this experiment. We're doing the best we can with it. We're trying to get things done. But, if that's what is important, then let's find that person and let's figure out how to get them in here and get things going for the city. Because really, that's the most important thing here, is that whatever is in our code long-term is what works for the city. And if at this point you guys don't want an administrator anymore, then that's what you want. I mean, that's the bottom line. If what I'm bringing to the table isn't working for you and you don't think somebody else can do it better, then we'll, if we need somebody different, that's fine. But we need to know what those skills are, and we need to identify what those skills are. And I think that that's going to be really important. This is much different than what we've done in the past, obviously. When we've had, just council persons, not just council persons, but I mean, you guys are spending time out of your life to try and figure out the day-to-day operation. I think what we are looking for is to be able to have our staff be able to run regardless of who has expertise in here. And that's the hard part. It's great when you do have expertise and can add that to what we have, but I think it's so important that the car needs to run around the track regardless of who's in here.
And just so you know, for an idea of the final interviews, there was 3 candidates, 2 of which had public administration degrees or backgrounds, and they were not the most qualified candidate. And I have the ability and the background to judge that. So just, there should be full assurances that Jeff came with 30 years of experience, so that shouldn't be discounted in the process, and he stood out as the top candidate. So I'm comfortable with the decision that was made, as I believe you should be as well.
I was just commenting from all the towns that were sent to us,
Oh, I know, I read them all, I'm familiar, I know a lot of the administrators.
so that's why I said it.
I really think the person is what makes the difference.
I think, sorry.
No, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think first and foremost is, my mind would be the day-to-day operations. That is the whole idea, and I think when the council voted you, that's exactly what we wanted. Someone who is here every single day, who staff, us, mayor, can count on to be running the city day-to-day operations. Now, there might be some decisions that, because maybe it's not something that we've done in the past, and so now it's changed up. Not a big deal. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. Maybe the council will be like, no, we want to go back to the way it was. That'd be a discussion for later on, not right this second when it's going on day-to-day operation. Right. That's my opinion. But again, it would be goes right back to what Bill was saying, Adam was saying, communication. That is the sole thing that has been lacking. And I'm not saying it's just you. It's a two-way street, but we're not here day to day. We don't know. If I do hear of something, I'm letting the rest of the council know individually what's going on, what I'm seeing. Did you hear about this? Did you know this? Were you contacted about this? And it's frustrating when we weren't, when days have gone by.
Yeah.
Okay? Quick text, email, whatever. I'm not saying you gotta drop right now with whatever you're doing, because I've told you many times, and I'm sure I'll continue to, you spend way too much time at the office, at the city.
If I may, I'd like to point out my comments were not an indictment of you, Jeff.
Oh, I didn't take it that
I
way.
know you know.
Not at all. It's
I know
just
you know,
not-
because I've told you
I didn't
plenty of
mean to
times
be
how much I
defensive. I'm
appreciate
just
you.
saying that what my point is that what's really important for the city is to decide how are we gonna interact together and how is this gonna work? What's gonna be best for the city of Sandwich? That's what I sent an email to you guys a while back. I don't want you to think about this in terms of me. This is about this position and what do we need?
Yeah,
We have to figure out what we need most.
that's how I'm
important.
viewing the document too.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the point that I want to make.
My,
is that
my
we
last
have to
comment
figure it
was,
out.
my last comment was to everybody else. That I've told you, I can't even count how many times I've told you how much I appreciate you.
No,
so.
and it's not about, I appreciate that, but that's not what I'm looking for. I just want to make sure that we have the right thing in place, the right structure that we can go forward, regardless of who is in these seats, that we can continue to do things every day, that we can improve our customer service, that we can serve our community, so that we can provide the services that they count on. And quite honestly, it's a struggle every day to provide those services. And we need to get better at it. And I think that that's really the goal. And I guess my disappointment is we're not as far along as I wanted to be after 2 years. And, that's just what it is. So my goal is 100%. I want to see Sandwich do well. I want us to be able to work together and understand where everybody is. I don't want to step out of my lane, and there's times I need you guys to stay in your lanes. But it's just a matter of how do we want it to be structured and what do we want it to look like? And that's where I think it's a bigger discussion.
Okay, other comments or discussion? Yes, Fred.
I was just gonna say that, this might be a great opportunity for us to create like a liaison charter that actually outlines what the liaison's responsibilities are. Like, what's your area of expertise? What should you get involved in, and what should be passed on to Jeff, what should be passed on to the department heads and that sort of thing. Because in all honesty, all of us probably have a different thought process of what each of us should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. So I think if there was a format to kind of follow, it would then say, this is when we're gonna talk to Jeff, this is when we're gonna talk to the mayor, this is when we're gonna let everybody know of what's going on. So it is a change. I mean, you talked earlier, Rich, about change, and I think the change has been extremely beneficial with having you here, Jeff, and I feel you're doing a great job. It's a bumpy road. It's something new, and every day there's another little challenge that comes up, right? So I think you're just getting through them, and we're getting through them, and we're all gonna get better as time goes on. So just keep pressing on.
Well, thank you, but I appreciate the comments. That's not what I was fishing for.
I know that's not what you're fishing for.
I want you guys to be comfortable with wherever we're going.
Yeah.
And be able to determine where we're going.
And so, I mean, this change is a change, right?
Yes, it
And
is.
so this is putting framework about what Jeff does and what council should be doing. And it is different, you know, so.
Absolutely. I like the idea of a charter for that, for the liaisons, and being able to figure out, okay, yeah, we all need that. I think it's part of an orientation that we probably need to do, especially if, we're going to have some new council members. We need to really seriously think about orientation, and it's great when people go to IML, but I think there's also a ton of things that I started putting together a stack of things that I would try to give to somebody new, and it's about this high. And that's hard. That's a lot of information to consume. And I think that, again, that's gonna be able to hopefully prepare people for where we're going. Or at least where I hope we're going.
Okay, so this should come back to us next month for a vote.
Fine by me.
We'll take some, Jeff has a chance to go through the comments, maybe talk to some of you more individually, and then we'll get a finalized document to council. Okay, new business. This is a discussion of an intergovernmental agreement between the Sandwich Park District and the City of Sandwich to install a fence north of Veterans Parkway. So one of our agreements with the railroad company is it basically puts us as the city in charge of their property. We are basically the go-between. So the Park District technically cannot put the fence up unless the city does it and then basically bills them back as how it really reads in the agreement. That's why it's here before you. It's kind of a strange thing, but that's the original agreement with the railroad and how the land is handled. So that is up tonight for council to approve the intergovernmental agreement. It'll be a $6,000 cost to put the fence. It'll be the same one as what we have on this slot. It will continue behind the park, which gives a nice look to the Veterans Park over here. So we'll install it and then we'll simply bill the Park District back on the IGA. They understand the process and they will reimburse us. Okay, questions? All right, moving on to item B. This is the decommissioning bond for the Sandy Bluff Solar Project. So we're talking end of life for the solar field. And we believe that there's a process that should be at the end. So they just don't pack up and leave and then we're left with a mess. So this bond has a little bit of work that we've been doing with it to talk about. So when the solar field's done, has had its useful life, what is the process to make sure that there is something that the city can retain to hold or use to make sure the property's back and restored to its proper order? So I'll ask our attorney to go ahead and make some comments to you about the purpose of that, and then you have an opportunity as well to vote on that so we can finalize that project, and then they can move forward with their solar plans.
So, and just so everyone knows, this is not an agreement that we have for a solar. This was the TP, Turning Point Energy Solar Project, that we granted the special use permit for. So we're not necessarily a party to the agreement, but as the city, we want to ensure that our property, well, land within the city is put back to its typical use. So they did provide a decommissioning plan, and we are named as the obligee on the bond. I have reached out to someone with the company because I would like to kind of shore up some details because it's a little bit reverse. But there's definitely no bad part about having a bond that we can call up for $500,000. I have seen some correspondence that that's a little bit over what they believe the estimated cost would be 25 years down the road. Obviously, there's no way to know about that, but I would like to just make sure that there is an agreement between us and the company that is agreeing to pay the bond, that they're going to specifically follow the decommissioning plan, which was reviewed and looked at by Kurt. So I would argue it may seem backwards, but this is kind of how it was sent to us by them. So I will say that I looked in my files at some of the other decommissioning bonds. This is definitely the highest I have seen. They were initially asking for much less. So I think it's a good thing that they agreed to pretty high bond.
Means they gotta take the sheep and everything they promised to bring out here and take back with them at the end.
Well, and we did push to try to put this a bit higher than what it was, just because we want to make sure that, you know, when they're done, we don't want anything left. That needs to go back to either farmland or something that can be developed industrially or whatever, and we want to make sure that everything's clean when we're done. So that's the reason that it's there, and it's taken a little bit to get that done, but I think it's important to make sure that we're protected going forward.
So I've had some pictures I've seen, you know, where the solar panels are broken or they're laying there and everything's just tore up and left. This is what it really protects. Agreement between the two parties, but we're added in there as the amount that we can receive to make sure that it's mitigated, cleaned up, and as our attorney said, in its proper order. All right, questions on that agreement?
If this company sells it to another company, does it succeed to them, the bond?
Well,
Because that's what's been happening lately is
well,
they
yeah,
turn hands.
that's actually what has happened. And I guess I thought about that, and in a way, I'm not sure I entirely care, right? As long as you have a bond that we can call
city.
to the city for $500,000 and we have confirmation that it's in place, and the language in the bond says that, say the company decides they don't want to hold it anymore, they have to give 90 days notice, and then if the company can't get a new one, they have to tell them within 60 days. And then basically, the company that's holding the bond either has to just pay up or they have to hold it, continue to hold it. So I think that the fact that it will remain, and essentially it's held until they get satisfactory evidence that the obligee is satisfied, or they just have to pay it. I think it would probably be beneficial to them that it would be assigned to whoever, but I'm not sure that from our perspective, it makes a huge difference, because I guess worst case scenario, we can call up the bond and use those funds to do what needs to be done. So, and I will say, it doesn't specifically say in there that it can be assigned, so, but I don't know necessarily what the agreement would be between the company and the principal on the bond.
It's a good
That makes
question, though.
sense.
We
Yeah,
had-
that, I mean,
We had similar conversation about it came with the land, and we realized we don't own the land. The best thing to do is have a bond payable to us that remains with us.
so I had that same question, and after kind of going through a couple different scenarios, I determined as long as the bond exists, that's the most important part for the city.
Okay, other questions on the decommissioning? Okay, that'll come up for a vote at the regular meeting. Next item is the discussion of professional services. This is with EEI for our lead service line replacement. This is for $6,150. It's a continuation of our agreement with some preliminary engineering. And this moves us further along in our lead line replacement process, so that'll be up for council for a vote. Any questions on that?
This is just an update to the plan. We have to, I believe we have to do it every year to keep that plan current.
Okay, and then the last item is item D. That is the resolution authorizing execution with the Illinois Department of Transportation, a certificate of authority. This basically has to do with our SALT program and our ability to buy with them. So it's basically just a continuing document that just, we have to identify who can place the order and the payment. So it's just a housekeeping. Okay. All right, and the last thing, there's announcements. We're gonna look to recognize our high school achievement at the April 7th committee of the whole meeting. We did one in the end of fall. These are ready for the students in between that will come back for us so council can recognize them and meet with them. So that's just a heads up, and then Jeff will be coordinating with the school, the athletes, scholars, and coaches or mentors to be here. Audience comments. All right, just remember you have 5 minutes. Please address your comments to myself. Janelle Inman. All right, Janelle, you ready? You can go ahead.
Hello? Okay. The weather's been nice, so a lot of people have been out walking, me included. The sidewalks that we just had done, I think we should take a look at before maybe we start, deciding who does the sidewalks again, as we're gonna do completing more. On the sidewalk on my property or alongside my property, I had actually Triggy do part of it and Crack Attack. And the part where Triggy did, the rocks are already starting to pop out, so there's a lot of pits and cracking and chipping in those sidewalks. And on 3rd Street, you can tell that they swept it when it was really wet. So, I mean, it's not chipping or anything, but it just looks bad. And I don't know if they did the sidewalks in front of Doomer, but those will probably need to be, and I don't think we did that, I think the school did that. Yeah, but I don't know if Triggy did that as well, because they're falling apart really bad too. So I don't think their quality of work is as good as Crack Attack. I know we have to, it's a bid process and everything, but you should still probably look at the quality of work that they do. Plus, I actually have photos of them committing OSHA violations, so, I mean, I just don't think they're the best company. And,
I'd recommend you submit those to OSHA, not us, because
Yeah.
that's where the violation goes.
right, I didn't.
But I
so-
do appreciate you bringing that to our attention, so we can
Yeah.
talk with our engineering firm.
So, that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next is Sandy Kohler.
Can I pass, please?
Becky Nelson. All right, welcome, you may begin.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I just wanted to make a couple of key bullet points from this meeting's dialogue. Something that really disturbs me is when I hear about us doing something like out of the goodness of our hearts because somebody won't comply or somebody won't call us back. And when you talk about doing a cleanup for a multi-billion-dollar company, BNSF, I cannot wrap my brain around why we wouldn't bill them for that. If that's their mess, I would think that an administrator or an attorney or even the council would be like, let's figure out our billable hours, our hallways, everything else, and let's bill BNSF. I mean, at the end of the day, that's their liability, correct? So Jeff said that it was their mess, and we got sick of looking at it, so we went ahead and cleaned it up. Who gets the bill? It's just a question, who gets the bill? And that in itself is called fiduciary responsibility, fiduciary outlook. If you see something, you say something. So for example, about 3 weeks ago, I went down Railroad Street, right across from the accountant's office there, and there's a big old mess right there across the tracks. And it looks like it's old railroad crossings, it looks like it's metal and like a big old mound of concrete. Whose mess is that? Who's gonna clean that up? When does the city start taking accountability for other people's messes and billing them? That's what bothers me the most, when we do things, because those are intergovernmental agreements to me. I mean, I'm just looking through all these resolutions, because the mayor's got his foot on the gas for resolutions tonight, but at the end of the day, it's like an intergovernmental agreement. If you got a lease with BNSF and the Park District and stuff, for example, and you find a mess, and they did the mess, and you can prove that, why are we paying to clean up their messes? That's my taxpayer dollars. I want to know why we're not billing them back. So is it too late to bill them back? That's my question. Second thing I want to say, and this one comes from the bottom of my heart, this election season has been intense. The rhetoric and the vitriol on social media has been too much. And I'm a personal victim of having my stuff stolen. So it's not just Phyllis Wellington, by the way. You can't use her professional name in a political setting. That's a statute, by the way. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is here, maybe the city or the police could come out with just a PSA. Quell the masses. You know, everybody gets a chance. This is called democracy. Whether you're on the ballot or you're a write-in, you get a chance. And at the end of the day, anything that's personal, anything that's an agitation or a division to this community, this council, this city government should be concerned about. I have people on there who have fundamentally threatened me. I've had people come on and, you know, say that I'm breaking the law. I'm not breaking the law. I'm following election integrity, election processes, and I will continue to do so through April 1st of 2025. So at the end of the day, I really think that the city, whether it be the police department, whether it be the council, whether it be the mayor, needs to come out with a public service announcement to please ask the masses to just take it easy, let us go through the process together, respectfully, and without any personal attacks. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Coltonado. All right, ready? You can go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I just figured I'd come up here and offer a little bit of assistance in the debate that we had of how this stuff works. What the term you're looking for is OBS, or organizational breakdown structure. You're looking for a flow chart of who reports to who, the same way the military does on that one. and breaking down who and how this reporting structure goes, and to overlook people that are the liaison of the board itself is pretty damning to the overall operation. Anytime that you're jumping a ranking structure portion of it, you're, in the military itself, it actually will result in you being Article 15, which would be 30 days restriction, 30 days confinement, and half month's paid times 2 deduction in rank. That's how much they take the seriousness of jumping rank structure. And I feel like if you're overlooking the liaison, the person appointed to that position to have the overall control and say on that one, they should have the overall organizational say of their structure and their people, and only report to the city administrator after they have to do what they have to do. And obviously, there's other different situations where they'll have to break it down. If you have, such as Alderman Arnett has a stake as a liaison to Public Works itself, but you have a situation over in Ward 3, you're gonna need to be notified as soon as the residents go that way as well. This is all war gamed as you sit there and you break down this structure. This is how it's done time and time again in a military service, in a fire department service, or anything else. If you have somebody out, this is who steps up, this is the person that reports, and this is how you do it. You're gonna have to sit down and war game this, so that way you actually know your organizational structure, you know who you report to, who is on leave or whatever else, and how this structure works. That's the breakdown, and that's what you need to do. And that comes from leadership itself whenever you're breaking that stuff down. Now, the other portion of this one, I've never, ever went to a job where I got to lay out my job description. Now, this is not a shot at you, sir. It's just the overall look at that. You don't hire somebody and they go, hey, by the way, what's your job? I've never in my employment here of multiple different things, whether I've worked in government agencies, worked for government agencies, or worked for private sector, big corporations, they have never let me decide my job. They've decided it for me prior to my employment, laid out the clear defined lines of what was expected of me, so that way, at the end of the time there, I could be evaluated on what I did, right? If I get employed and then you go, well, you're not doing your job. What is my job if I never actually had an employment structure? It's very easy on that one, and it's hard to hold somebody to a standard when they don't even know what they need to do. I'm not saying that, like I said, I'm not saying you're doing a bad job, doing the best you can with the structure that you got on that one, but you have to define the structure, and it should have been done long before he got employed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Sandy Kohler. All right, go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting and not taking my time up here. I got a SOS call from my daughter at home, so that takes precedence. I'm kind of, I said the other day that for the first time in a long time, this is the cleanest, calmest, nicest election process that I have seen this close to election. Nobody backstabbing each other, nobody talking crap about each other, nobody trying to tear anybody down. They're just putting their best foot forward and saying, this is what I can offer you as this, or this. Well, never, ever, ever put your foot in your mouth. Because no sooner than I come to this meeting tonight, I hear that there's an ordinance that only one sign per person, per property, and some look like Fort Knox with them all the way around their property, like we don't know you're running for something. I mean, seriously. I see people getting theirs stolen. I saw an email the other day that absolutely trashed someone and lied about someone. There was another one today that trashed someone and lied about someone. Our families are seeing these. Our friends are seeing these. You want to know something about somebody that's running, walk up to them and ask them. They will tell you. You don't have to do anonymous posts like they did on one out here, another anonymous post, another. If you're anonymous, what you're saying is a lie. Don't buy into it. So can we please go back to where one thing that I have complained about you, I'm sorry, but it is the truth. We have to get along. We have to be able to communicate. If we can't get along in an election, how do we get along as a city? And that's what I needed to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else wish to make a public comment that hasn't had a chance to do so? All right, the last item that we have on our agenda for the committee of the whole meeting is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion is made by Alderman Robinson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Erickson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, committee of the whole meeting is adjourned. Quick recess and we'll